want to wrap up our discussion of soil science and forest soils by commenting on a few issues specific to California forests and increasingly global forests. These are issues that I wouldn't be surprised if they're coming to mind for you. Let's just give a little bit of context to this. So first, let's start with the obvious, and that's fire. Not one of the 5 factors of soil formation, but clearly something that is essential to think about and understand when trying to understand how forests change. And I want to acknowledge that fire has a powerful effect on forests. It consumes organic matter. It kills above ground vegetation, or at least reduces its biomass by changing the current structure of forest soils, and by affecting vegetation. Fire can influence soil formation, and it has a strong influence on soil quality as you perceive it in the moment. One of the most important things that forests do is provision water. And that term, water provisioning, means water storage and also water release. And very specifically, water release that is relatively constant or predictable and meets the needs of the local community. Soils play a big role in this through their capacity to retain water in organic matter in particular, and also in the inorganic component of soil as well. Now, fire consumes organic matter and reduces that storage capacity, water storage capacity of soil. Fire also breaks up the cohesiveness of soil and can result in large amounts of erosion. Both of those things reduce the storage of water in soils and in forests. As a result, after very severe wildfires such as the Soberanes fire that happened in Big Sur in 2016, you can have very large and very problematic amounts of water runoff. Here's an example of damage to roads and overwhelming of the drainage capacity here. Serious damage, very costly in terms of the economic impacts. Now, 2016, of course, was a banner year for water, and the other event that happened that you might know about is the Oroville Dam failure. Fortunately, this wasn't as bad as it could have been. Excessive runoff this is just an example of how excessive runoff can overwhelm our infrastructure capacity. This was a scary event. Like I say, fortunately, it didn't get much worse than wrecking the spillway here. Fortunately, the dam did not fail, and that it impacted people's lives, but it did not destroy any towns downstream. Now, what else is going on in forests besides fire? Well, we have these really remarkable biologically driven mortality events that are ongoing in California forests. I've mentioned the historic bark beetle outbreak in the Sierra Nevada. This is a photograph from Yosemite National Park. This is a reduction of the biological capacity to the biological component of soils, a reduction in the living roots and potentially impacting soil water storage as well as some other characteristics of soil. Biological mortality is occurring across the globe. Here's a root pathogen that's caused a lot of damage in the Algarve region in Portugal. And when you have this kind of biological mortality, or excuse me, whenever you have mortality from any source, whether it's biological, fire, or other factors, you start to have changes in the moisture dynamics of the entire forest and soil system, this coupled system, the above ground vegetation and the soil. In particular, when trees die, there's an increase in soil radiation, precipitation is not intercepted by the canopy, transpiration changes, there's even more, there's just an increase in runoff potentially, and this can cause a lot of problems, particularly increases in the peak flow. And as I mentioned with the photographs of Oroville Dam and from Big Sur, this can overwhelm the infrastructure here. And the last thing that I want to bring up is this trend globally for this trend in precipitation patterns globally, and in particular a tendency for increased drought in the forested regions of the world. Tree mortality as an event, it appears to be increasing globally. These tree mortality events all have different underlying causes. Some of them are driven by biological agents. Some of them are driven by drought. Some of them maybe even be driven by changes in the frequency or intensity of fire. Regardless, these are changing the distribution of forests, actually converting areas from forest to other kinds of ecosystems, as well as changing the composition and structure of forests as well. Those changes affect these coupled soil and forest systems, the inorganic and the biological components of forests. And we don't quite know where all of this is going. We know that the mortality is increasing worldwide. It appears that it will challenge many of our natural resource goals, in particular, all kinds of production goals associated with forests, timber and non-timber products. Here's an example, again, from the Algarve in the south of Portugal. This is cork production. Cork is produced on the native oaks in Spain, Portugal, and across the Straits of Gibraltar, also in Algeria. And this is a sustainable forest product. It's a natural product. It is important in the local economies. And drought, and especially drought interactions with fire and drought interactions with biological agents, is compromising this resource. So it's the right time to ask ourselves, how can we manage this? What should we expect in the future? How can we, is it possible to adjust how we use and manage forests such that they continue to sustain the local, to sustain local communities and local economies?